in cerca della gloria, in cerca della gioia.
We can just get right into it, really. As far as like, tell us your poker story, your journey here to be the owner of Ante Up, and why you decided to do it, and how you decided, how that opportunity came across. Tell us about that. That's just super interesting to me.
Yeah, so like most people that play poker, I played poker in some degree forever. My senior trip in high school, we all, just me and a bunch of guys, we were at the lakes of the Ozarks, and we had a cabin, and we all just stayed up all night playing poker for a whole Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just all night staying up playing poker. It clicked with me. I was like, there's something about this that I'm better than they are. And I don't know what it is, but from that point on, I read every book that I could. I studied as much as I could. I was fascinated with the strategy of the game. And then from there, it just was kind of a side thing. I'd play some games, home games here and there or whatever, but nothing like serious. And then I actually got into a free poker league, believe it or not, and ended up winning a seat to the World Series. Played the main. I was 70 away from making the money.
Wow.
And then
what was that? The World Poker Tavern, or like what?
Yeah, I think it was World Tavern. Yeah, it was World Tavern. So we played, our local game, and then then there's regionals, and the top 10% in regionals went on to nationals, and then if you won nationals, you got a seat.
And you did that.
There were 3,000 and some odd people in nationals, and I won my seat. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
total free roll.
Yeah, complete free roll. They paid for the plane ticket. They paid for everything.
Wow.
Sit down and see what I can do.
So it was a winner take all thing. You had to win the thing.
Yeah. I had
wow.
It was 10%. From the local, 10% went to regionals, and then 10% went to nationals, and then you had to win. And there were other prizes.
How many people? You said 3,000?
There were over 3,000
in the national game.
In the national game.
Wow, dude, that's awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
That's a epic fucking run. That's an epic fucking run right there.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. But like with any kind of poker tournament, you had to get pretty lucky on some. I had kings versus aces, and hit the king on the river to survive, and then run on. But that's the hand I remember the most. And then the hand that I remember the most from actually playing in the World Series is I was actually at a table with a Unabomber. I can't remember his name. What's the
Phil Locke.
Phil Locke. Yeah. I was at the table with Phil Locke, and we talked a little bit, but nothing super serious. And there was this other guy that was at the table who was just loud and berating everybody at the table, telling everybody that they didn't know how to play poker or whatever. I won't go through the whole hand, but basically I knocked him out of the tournament by getting quads on the turn. And he continued to berate me throughout the entire hand. I Hollywooded a lot and basically knocked him out of the tournament, and Phil Locke just goes, "Nice hand, kid."
Nice.
And that was my shining moment of the World Series. But then fast forward, I played local home games. We're in a place where there's not a lot of casino action here. It's getting better. But
it's creeping closer.
Yeah.
Creeping closer.
But you had to drive quite a ways. Still have to drive quite a ways to be able to play in a casino atmosphere. So played home games, whatnot, but always still was just obsessed with the game. And I used to listen to the Ante Up Poker podcast, and of course you'd go to the casinos and they would have the magazine there and always read it and whatnot. listening to the podcast one day. They're like, we're selling. We're going to sell the podcast. It was after COVID, so casinos were shut down. They couldn't make money. Everything was done for March of 2020 was the last issue of the magazine. March of 2022 was when they ended the podcast. But before that, they said they were selling, and I came home, said to my wife, they're selling it. And she's like, who's selling what? And I was like, there's the podcast that I listen to every week. They're selling it. I want to buy it. And she was like, well, message them. So I did. And it took us a good 6 to 8 months to be able to work out financing and figure it all out. But in November of 22, I officially became the owner. January of 2023, I started the podcast back up. The goal was start the podcast, then restart the magazine, and then start some of the other pieces, right? So January, I got the podcast back. We had, at that point, our very first episode back, we had, I think, 1,100 people that listened. And the episode last week, we had 12,000. So we've grown that exponentially. And then April of 22, I finally had those numbers for the podcast growing, decided it was time to bring that magazine back. They were spending astronomical amounts to print the magazine.
Yeah.
And in today's world, it just didn't make sense. So I
Sure.
brought it back in a digital realm. But I was like, something has to set us apart, right? Something has to be different than, say, Card Player.
Yeah.
Their digital magazine is a PDF. You have to pinch and zoom and try to make it fit on whatever screen you're on. It's really set up to look good on a regular CPU, right? Not your phone.
Right.
So I found a software that I could insert audio and video, and it will match any screen, right? So if you put it up on a 70-inch TV, it's going to look good. If you put it on your phone, it's going to look just as good.
Right.
And so we went from April's issue. Again, this speaks to Ante Up Nation. This speaks to our fan group, because our very first issue, there were 2,000 people that checked it out. The last issue that we just had in December, we took January off. The December issue, we had 179,000. So just incredible growth. Once people really started figuring out it was back, then it just started growing and growing and growing. But I'll tell you what, when April came, when those numbers came in, I was like, maybe I made a mistake.
Yeah.
But it's been a continuous growing. We've had continuous growth, and I've loved every minute of it.
Man, I think that's great that you were able to dive into something that you've got passion behind.
Yeah.
That's like, you're not even, I mean, it's a lot of work, and you got a lot of obligations, and I'm sure you've solicited advertisers that expect your performance and your thing to bring them something back. And I'm like, I want to pay more attention to it, and I want to like dive deeper into what you're, putting out there. I want to
Sure.
do more of that. Like, I'm going to do more of that. But just the fact that you're doing it, I have nothing but admiration and respect for you for doing
I appreciate that.
That's like, because this is hard, bro. This is super hard. And, for you to get anybody to pay attention, just, shows great effort and execution.
Right.
So
right.
good job, man. Good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the biggest hurdles I have is from the social media standpoint. I'm the worst. I'm the worst at social media because in my personal life, I don't spend a lot of time on there. I've got 100 other things. I don't need to spend time scrolling through social media, but I know that it's important for the business. And so I struggle with trying to make time for that.
So like that's where I come in, and I'm gonna maybe give you some inspiration here because you got something to sell.
right.
You and that platform is solely for the sellers. There's so many consumers there that if you have a product, a service, or a brand that you need to get to the public, it's such an arbitrage because if you're consistent with it and you got content there that's valuable to a community, they're going to get it and support you. So
Right.
you got to go where the attention is, and you got to arbitrage that because there's not a lot of money you have to spend, especially if you can create that community. And that poker community is such a obsessive community.
Right.
So I would definitely try to encourage you to be omnipresent on the internet because that, in my space, it's the same. In
Right.
my space, I've got to be omnipresent. I got to be everywhere the attention is, and I got to try to navigate to the waves that I need to crash on me. So in the same regard, you just got to look at it as a selling platform to get your brand more recognition because there's so many different levels to the ways that we can earn income in this age, having your own poker tour, having the Ante Up Poker Tour.
Yeah.
I mean, how great would that be?
Well, that's one of the things that we brought back. So it's good that you mentioned that because we had two other steps that the previous owners had. One being the Ante Up Poker Tour, the other being an Ante Up Poker Cruise. This year, in March, we have our first stop for the Ante Up Poker Tour in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and shout out to LeBerge. That's where we're going to be. And then our Ante Up Poker Cruise starts in October. We have Carnival. We've got our own private poker room where, if you join us through Ante Up Poker, we're going to have a poker room set up where it's just for us. And if you want to go out and play in the other casino, you can, but knowing that you're always going to have a poker game in this room. And also, we've got different prizes. I've been working with Faded Spade to get cards to everybody. And it's just, another one of those pieces that is inching its way back in.
Yeah.
They had an Ante Up Poker Cruise every year for 8 years. And,
That's amazing.
They had actually before 2020, they were able to do 2 a year. So just trying to inch our way back into it, but it's fun. And you're right. Social media, I've got to be able to get that out there to those people. And it's just, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm one man show, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you've got to call advertisers. You've got to follow up with ones that are already on the air and continue to keep that relationship. But you also have content that has to come out every week. I've got a magazine that comes out every month. I've got interviews that I've got to have set up for those. And so it's this wheel. And then at the end of it, I'm like, how important is that? And I know it's important, but it's like, it's more important. Is it more important that I contact this person for advertising to spend dollars, or is it more important for me to be in front of? And it's a constant juggle, right? So one of my goals for 2024 is to be better about that, for sure.
I think in your progression of growth, you'll need some key partners. You'll need some some salespeople, some people that know marketing and branding and stuff like that. I think it's unavoidable that you're gonna remain a one-man band and get it to the spot that I would want to see it. If I was a partner of yours and we wanted to really like be a well-known, recognized brand
Right.
in the space, you got a lot of competition too, right?
Oh, right.
To muscle up with card player is going to be a challenge, not impossible, but that is a staple of the poker community. So
100%.
so
Yeah.
to get any market share from or really just what's the word, compete with them for attention, um, is going to be a team effort. I
Oh,
think.
100%. Yeah. I've already, people that come out of the woodworks to offer a hand, has been, it's incredible. And part of them are, some of that are people that just listen and want to be a part of it. Right.
Yeah.
Which is mind blowing to me. But, we went, we went to Chicago there was a live stream and we were announcing the live stream, and which, by the way, is a lot harder than it looks
Yeah.
on TV.
Commentation is not is a art form.
Those
for sure.
Those cards, what they're holding comes up on the screen and is gone so fast, and I'm like, he's got 9-7. Nope, he folded, and there's the Jack 9. It was crazy, but I got better as it went on. But anyway, we were in Chicago and we announced that we were going to be there for this live stream. And we had people that drove for 4 hours and 3 hours and whatever just to come see us at the live stream. And I'm like, why? But so it's taken me some time to realize that people want to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
And it's an important piece, but it's, I guess I would consider myself a pretty humble guy. So I'm just kind of like, I don't know why somebody would want to hear what I have to say, but I guess they do.
Well, I mean, that's just it's just going to come with it, right?
Right.
You being in the position that you put yourself in, and you're out there, in this space, the fans are going to want to hear what you have to say. That's one thing that you're going to just have to like start to love. Like you.
Oh,
really,
I definitely love it. I love the fact that each week we have 2 segments on the show. One called Call the Floor, and one is Hand of the Week. So Call the Floor. I have Elliot Schechter. He's a poker room manager in New York, in Schenectady, New York, and fans will send in situations that happen in their home games or in a casino that they played in or whatever, and they'll be like, this weird thing happened. How would you rule on this in the casino? And he will go break down how that would go, right?
That sounds like viral TikTok content to me if it was on video.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
that's starting to be a thing, talking about hand ranges and doing all that and like big decisions that happened on like whatever situation was going on. That's a really big attention getter.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's probably, so if you look at our numbers, that segment is our strongest segment. People love Elliot. People love these situations, these weird situations, because all the crazy things that can happen in a home game.
Yeah.
So these crazy situations, and he is no nonsense. He's like, this is the way it goes, and if you don't like it, tough shit.
Yeah.
But then the other segment that people send us a hand each week, and we break it down, and it's me who has a little bit more poker experience, but also we have Patrick on with us, and he's the novice. He's the resident fish, as I say. He is. So this. We sit down at a table, and somebody makes the most unbelievable play, and you're like, what were you thinking, right? So we have Patrick there to be able to say what that fish is thinking. Why did they make that call? Why did they bet in that strange situation or whatever? And It's been kind of fun because we've watched his evolution, and one of the listeners actually sent an email about this, but he started as he doesn't even have the right language, right? And now he's grown and grown and grown, and he's really done a really good job. We had a hand just this week's podcast where we played Ace Nine of Diamonds, and the person that we were up against, our villain, kept making $15 bets into a $60 pot and into a over $100 pot, and he's like, "This is strange. I think he's trying to bait us in there." And I'm like, "Now you're thinking, right? now you're thinking why is he making, because it used to be, well, I can call 15, right? And now he's thinking, why are they making that bet?" And it's fun to watch that evolution, and it helps the listeners as well, right? Like they start to go, "Oh, I should be thinking about this instead of that."
Right.
So it's fun, and I think my whole point of that was that it's great to see these listeners want to send us that content. They
Right.
want to send us. They want to be a part of the show.
And their need for wanting to understand the game more and be better at it, and get the rewards that we're all after when we sit down at the table.
Right.
Like we come to the table. There's different reasons why we all come to the table,
Oh, sure.
but the main thing is that there's money on the line. in my opinion, like we all see opportunity. We all think that eventually some pots might come our way.
Sure.
Maybe those pots are bigger than the other pots going the other way, and we can make a little bit of money. There's opportunity there.
Right.
But then there's the social aspect of it. There's the escapism of it. There's a lot of different reasons why we come to the table. But the bottom line is that there's money in the pot that can be gotten.
Right. But I'll be honest. I mean, yes, that's the reason that
We all
it
come
is
to the
fascinating.
table.
Yeah, that's the reason the game is fascinating. But
Rags to riches, baby.
I think that I would play, not think. I know if I'm playing in a home game for nickels and dimes, I'm playing the same poker as if I'm playing for $500 or more. Like,
Yeah.
I just love the strategy of the game, and I'm trying to figure out how to beat you.
Yeah.
Period. That is what I'm wanting to beat the people that I'm at the table with.
I can't say the same. A free roll versus if $10,000 was on the line, I'm playing a little bit more seriously. There's more opportunity there. There's it's a serious opportunity.
Sure.
At that point, and you rolling through that World Tavern thing the way that you did, I don't know of more of an epic run than to end up, having to beat all these people and then end up in the World Series of Poker main event.
Right.
Than that, but I mean that still had major implications on the line as you run through. So the finish line of what's available at it in this game is what's so compelling. Is like, buy in 170 and get 1,000 back. Buy in 1,000 and have an opportunity to make 100,000.
Sure.
Like those are compelling to anybody with ambition.
Absolutely.
Like that's the big deal for me. And then there's just those people that do find sport in it. And they can't find sport anywhere else because they're not athletic.
Right.
So there is that whole, UFC aspect of it, being in the cage.
Yeah. I agree with you to a point, but if you're in that free roll and you are playing, the stakes might not be the same, but that's an opportunity to hone some skills for later.
Yeah, finding spots that that you want to gamble, finding spots that you need to find folds, like training in those ways is fine. That's understandable. Especially the novice.
Yeah.
The novice needs to find those spots to feel the pressure that we feel in big moments.
Right. Maybe you're not used to 3-betting in certain,
Right.
certain arenas. And so that's a perfect opportunity to get comfortable doing it, right?
Sure.
And maybe you're not used to playing weak suited connectors, but that's the opportunity to get used to it so that you can then do that in a bigger.
Yeah.
uh,
There's levels to it all.
Right.
And, I guess any advice would be to limit your exposure early, not to pay for your education too hard, but get into the pressure situations that we all find ourselves in, and then try to avoid the disasters and get out of the pots when you're dead, and then go for the max when you've got the nuts type
Right.
thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny
Exactly.
that you mentioned that. I used to play at small stakes games, and I would do wild stuff.
Sure.
And I used to tell people it was literally to teach myself how to get out of really weird spots.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. Those are the you would rather be doing that at the low stakes rather than panicking.
Yeah, and
at
getting
the
really
high
punished
stakes. Yeah.
getting really punished in those key games.
Right. The hard part to that also though is somebody at quarter 50 may not react the same way either as that person that's been more experienced and has worked their way up those levels. They're going to see through some of the things that other people aren't going to see through as well. So you have to take some of that training with a grain of salt as well.
Sure.
It's really more about the comfortability of being in those spots rather than how that person's going to react to it.
Yeah. So as far as your play goes, how has this venture impacted your passion of playing?
Well, I still love the game. I still love to play. The problem is that I've been so busy. I've played less poker since I've owned a poker media company than I've played in my life.
Yeah.
So I haven't had the opportunity to play as much. I do play some online when I can.
Yeah, see your Patreon group, you try to have that type stuff.
Yeah, that's been a fun thing because and it kind of goes back to what we were saying where people love to play with the Ante Up team,
Yeah.
right? So we have the writers for the magazine and we have us and they love to
Mix
be
it
able
up.
to brag that they knocked me out of the tournament.
Sure.
So we have a monthly Patreon game. They pay $10 a month to be a part of that group. And then they get the opportunity to play against us. They get some behind the scenes content and things like that. But
that's cool.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. The biggest thing is that game, and people love to show up for this game. And we put $50 on the line, so it's not a ton of money, but it's something to play for.
Yeah.
And we do it as a winner take all. It almost never makes it to a winner take all. They end up chopping it at some point, but usually heads up. But yeah, it's one of those things that you can see everybody plays a certain way until they knock me out, and then the play changes. They're like, well, that was my goal, was to knock him out so I can play different now.
That's hilarious. So I just kind of interested in what your ambition is for the future here. Like I see things in the horizon, like that's kind of my talent. And especially in business, I've kind of been in the horizon in the real estate business. I do things first a lot of times, and then everybody kind of like picks up if they like it and they try to replicate it type thing. So, what's your advertising solicitation strategy? Where are you with that? I mean, I see, I mean, bicycle needs to make a comeback. BBO poker tables needs more attention. There's brands in the poker community that need to at least hear about Ante Up and why they should advertise with you. So what are your ambitions there? Who do you currently have? Where are you there with that? And like, how big, tell me about your ambition. How big is this thing for you?
Sure. So we're a little bit different than all of our competitors too, because we reach out to, our focus is the everyday poker player. We're not going after the. There's tons of content out there for somebody that wants to be the poker pro, right? I'm not gonna break down.
So you're for the
where-
novice. You're
Yeah.
for the novice that's
Yeah.
kind of just in it for entertainment value, sport, and
The guys that are having the weekly home game
Gotcha.
that they go to a casino a couple of times a month, maybe, or
a couple times a
yeah,
year.
even. And they want to play some bigger tournaments. They want to learn the game enough or adjust their game enough to be able to do well in these tournaments. And I mean, we do have players that are talking about, what the math is here and the math is there and whatnot. And we talk about that a little bit, but our bigger focus is on that person that's wanting to win their home game, consistently.
Yeah.
And then go to a casino and take it to the next level there. So when I'm reaching out to advertisers, I'm reaching out to advertisers that make sense for a home game as well.
Yeah.
BBO, poker tables, like you said, that's a huge one.
Yeah. And bicycle, I mean,
and bicycle,
let's like,
Copag.
Copag has the market right now. Bicycle, I like the bicycle cards. The jumbo print bicycle cards needs to make a comeback, in my opinion.
Well, and I mentioned, I've been working with Faded Spade, which they're the official cards of the WPT.
Okay. Never heard of them, actually.
They're beautiful cards.
Yeah.
And they're plastic. They're really good quality cards.
I mean, that would be a great advertiser there if they hooked up with you and you like made us aware of that, even in this local community.
Right.
I know for a fact we'd sell the heck out of them if they were quality.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I've been working with them. They're going to be out with us on the cruise. The owner, Tom Wheaton, is the owner of Faded Spade, and he also is an agent that kind of deals with these poker pros. So he's got a lot of big names. He put together a Dreamers documentary that's on YouTube, and so we had a big special on that as well. But so I've worked with them, but I'm also working with Maker's Mark.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I mean, a whiskey brand is a shoe in.
Yeah,
for sure.
So what do you bring into your home game?
Gotta have a bottle of whiskey at every home game.
A good drink, and a good cigar, maybe. And so I've been working with some of those companies trying to bring them in for 2024 as well. And so, obviously, like you said, BBO poker tables, different chip manufacturers.
Yeah.
There's just something about when you have a good quality chip, poker chip, with some kind of design that you want to put on it.
Yeah, custom design.
People just love that, right, in their home games.
Yeah.
So we always work with, the last 2 years we've worked with the Chip Collector Society. They put on a big show in Vegas every year, and they have a tournament in that game. I wasn't able to make it last year, and I don't know if you guys know Tom McAvoy, but he won the 1983 World Series of Poker.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah,
he was in. I did a Where Are They Now kind of segment on him for the magazine, and we kind of have started to, kept that friendship going.
Nice.
And so Tom McAvoy, just a side story. Tom McAvoy, he is the reason that there's not smoking in poker rooms now.
Yeah.
They used to have what they called the WSOP crud, right? So after the World Series, it was so smoky, people would get sick. They had all this stuff in their lungs, they were for weeks afterward. So he started this petition, and eventually the World Series of Poker decided not to have smoking, and then it was like a chain reaction, right? All these places stopped smoking in their poker rooms, and it was life changing for poker players.
Yeah.
But this petition, he actually he sent me the book, and so I have all of the original signatures of all of these poker players that didn't want it. So Doyle Brunson, I've got Phil Hellmuth, all of the Sammy Farha, who smoked, signed the petition. All of these big name people that signed this petition. He said, I just want you to have this book. But
that's awesome.
yeah,
That's a big poker memorabilia situation right there.
Yeah. So I went to his house the last time I was in Vegas. I stopped by his house and we talked for a while. And his whole house is poker memorabilia. I mean, there is so much stuff in there.
Nice.
It's like a shrine to poker. It's amazing. So much history. But I don't even know where I was going with that story. But Tom and they've got I remember the chip collectible. They have this big tournament that's there, and Tom puts this on. So I was talking about how people just want to knock me out of this tournament. I am going to go to this thing because I want to play poker with Tom McAvoy.
Right.
It's like my goal now. I just want to play a few hands with Tom.
And if you knock him out, what a story, right?
Right.
I knocked out a World Series of Poker champion, a legend in the game.
A legend, yeah. Yeah, so
that's pretty cool.
But that's one of the advertisers we've had every year is this chip collectible memorabilia. They actually have some of the old slot machines that were in casinos way back when. And,
nice.
They show how people cheated the systems with these slot machines and stuff and the evolution. It's really fascinating stuff. I've never really collected casino memorabilia. I do collect playing cards. Like I just everywhere I go, I get a deck of playing cards with a design from that casino or that city or whatever. Right. I just love.
That's awesome.
Love those, but I've never been a chip collectible. But the number of people when we had them on as an advertiser last time, the number of people that wrote in were like, here's my collection, and they would send in pictures of their collections and stuff. People have, I don't know how much these are worth, but tons of poker chips of casinos that are long gone.
Yeah,
and $100 chips or $5 chips, it doesn't matter. It's just really cool to see these designs from the Sands or whatever, Yeah. But yeah, that's one of the advertisers that we've had every year. And so my goal for 2024 is to really focus on, I know what my audience is, right? I know that we are 68% male. I know that they are ones that travel. I know that they are. So taking that a step further, right? So we know from a poker standpoint, chips, cards, whiskey, beer even, cigars, that can work for the home game. But there's also that male dominant, like Everyman Jack. One that
you got to have an apparel. You got to have an apparel supplier too, because this is like the outfit of poker. Yeah. We're in the outfit of this is our uniform.
That's right. Yeah.
So having some way to create merch, and put in your brand or some catchy saying with the Ante Up logo or something like that you could partner with. Shoot, I mean, let's just get real ambitious with it. Adidas or Reebok or any of these people that you could get on board with your idea that would collaborate with you.
Right.
Do a Kanye deal on the poker side.
Right. So in December, when I was kind of going through what my goals for 2024 were, that was out there. That's one of the smaller rung goals. We have apparel out there. We use TeePublic, but they make things like this, and they have shirts. I I want to up the quality a little
Yeah.
bit. I want to go to that next level
Yep.
of what I can offer, because these are good. They're comfortable. They're, but I want one that is affordable, but still, good quality that's not going to fade.
And you need somebody to wear it that's getting TV time.
Sure.
And that's, I'm going to plug Adam.
Yeah.
Adam Hendricks, we have a poker, a guy that's really making it. I call him like a Blacksburg legend here, because he came into this community, cut his teeth in our games,
Right.
developed the love and the passion and the understanding that he has to know that that's what he wanted to do. And now he's in Choctaw today at the WSOPC.
Yeah.
And he's doing the high rollers, he's doing the big buy-in events that you can go broke quick in, and he's winning money,
Right.
and he might be on a little downswing, but that's just the nature of the game. And but he's got some big wins, and he's got some big cashes, and he's in the mix. So like, he's on TV, he's in those TV spots. So
Right.
like, partnering with him to have a little bit of that publicity, I think would be a wise thing. And I would just love to see it. I'd love to see Annie Up on my friend on TV, that's getting exposure, and then help him get exposure through your platform, because he needs to increase his social media following as well. So, we need to figure out a path where he gets those Brad Owen deals, or he gets these, endorsements from companies that'll help him put a bullet into a game, and
Sure.
lessen his variance financially, where he can just play the game and not have to worry about the money that's needed for the game.
Right. Absolutely. That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Is to be able to play comfortably, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. You're
I think
absolutely right.
I think all the top people are getting notoriety within their play, finding ways to get money outside of the game with endorsements that keep them in the game.
Sure.
Doyle wrote the Super System.
Yeah.
That was a $10 million property that his net worth through his play, I bet Super System was worth 10 to 15 million.
He was, I don't remember exactly what year it was that he wrote that. I want to say it was like 79. But he was selling that book for $100 then,
Yeah.
which was unheard of.
Yeah.
Like, huge. That's a huge chunk of money back then.
Yeah.
And it was selling.
Yeah.
So
1978.
70, I was close.
Yeah. But Super System 2, which was the evolution of all that, I think Super System 2 probably outsold the original.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that property for him, that money that came in secured the rest of his life and whatever he wanted
and
to
he
do.
self-published it.
Yeah.
So he actually he had a storefront on the Strip in Vegas and went in there every day, and people would just walk in the door, buy his one book, and walk out. He signed every one of them.
Wow.
And I'm sure that there were other ways that he was selling it too. It was in bookstores and all that, but he had a physical location that he was at that people would walk in and buy his book. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
But yeah. But you're right. Just getting that that little piece there for a poker player
That
is
stabilizes it. That stabilizes
Yeah.
their life. That gives them some predictability in their income where there's no predictability in the play.
Right.
So that really gives them a foundation. And I would love to help craft that for Adam. I would love to help him stay in the game, help him lower his he wants to have he wants to get married and have a family at some point. You want to remain in the game with a wife and kids.
Yeah.
You need some stability
Right.
from that, So like, I would love to be that influence to be like, how do we help him do that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparel is one of those pieces.
And
but
he's
there's
passionate,
so many.
and he's passionate about style and comfort and
He's pretty flashy.
yeah, I
He
would
wears
I
some
would
cool clothes.
I would be it would be a good partnership, I think, between you guys on the merch side of it, because he's going to want certain things for himself that is going to probably appeal to the other players as well, and the consumer that you're targeting when he's an ambassador for Ante Up, and they see him and the Ante Up Poker Tour, when you win that free roll to get to an Ante Up seat, then you're hanging out with Adam for a couple hours.
Right.
You know, so I just think there's a huge mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship between Ante Up and a guy like Adam.
Oh, 100%. And and there's a lot of players like Adam out there that are just on a I mean, I know you said he was on a downswing a little bit now, but he has been trending up for a while, like
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah.
His career has
Progressed.
really progressed
Yeah.
well.
I mean, honestly, he's due for a bracelet. I mean,
Oh, 100%.
yeah.
100%. And there are a lot of players like Adam that are making their own breaks in the game that do well, but don't have the name recognition.
Right. I mean,
some of these other
his
guys do.
Instagram's under like 3,000, and that's just absurd. Like, you know, for the talent that he is. So he's got to find a way to bring more entertainment into his posting. And I'm in the same thing. I deliver a lot of content, but it's probably I'm trying to sell you something, and it's not more attraction. Like, I need to do more attraction content and more entertainment content, more so than this is the product I have, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm up to. You
Right.
should be a part of it. Like, I'm trying to evolve in that same regard. You know,
Right.
bringing my personality out in certain situations and having like entertainment, you know, like funny moments, like interesting conversations. Like, that's kind of where we're evolving to in the landscape of, instead of me just having showing you the product that I have and asking you if you are interested or not.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and that's another. I know I keep coming back to my own social media stuff, but that's another reason that I haven't spent the time on it, because if I'm going to do it, I want it to be entertaining. I want it to be something that people are going to want to watch, not be like, oh, there's another post.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and
yeah, I feel like I'm in that trap. You know, I'm posting in that way, and it's just like, you know?
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. And I'm not going to spend my time to put something out there that people aren't going to pay attention to.
sure,
You know,
Yeah.
our time is precious,
definitely.
and you have to choose what you're going to do. If it's not going to be something that people are going to want to see, then why am I doing it?
Right.
So that's I'm 100% with you that is something that I'm constantly battling with.
Yeah.
How am I going to do this that is going to be something that people want to see?
I've always struggled with that, because inside my mind I have these grand ideas that I have really a hard time getting to the complete package that I envisioned to then deliver to the consumer. So I just deliver something to deliver something.
Yeah.
And it does get attention, but it doesn't get the attention that would relate to the following that I have. You know, I have 10,000 followers on Facebook, but I don't get hundreds of likes or comments, or only if I'm controversial in some way will I get 100 plus comments or shares or whatever. But if I'm posting and I'm just doing the general basic things, it's getting a couple comments, it's getting a couple of likes, it's getting 1,000 lookovers, but nobody's reacting to it. So I'm seeing analytics of my content is getting views, but it's not getting reactions in a positive, trade. It's getting consumed, but there's nothing getting trade back to me for the consumption.
Right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely 100%. And here's the funny thing about poker that I've learned in this time. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, that is where poker players live,
Yeah.
breathe, want to post.
Poker Twitter is hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facebook, Nah.
Yeah.
Instagram is where everybody else wants to be, but it's like,
Yeah.
But
The cult-
Twitter goes.
The poker cult is over on
explodes.
X for
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
Yeah. It explodes over there. So, it's interesting, the mindset, because I was really trying to bring in all of these people to Instagram, and then I'm like, why am I fighting it? Why do I have to put them in a place
You go where your consumers
this is where
are.
they want to be?
Yeah.
This is where I need to put the content.
Sure.
So that's been a new piece to in December again, when I was going through my stuff. I'm like, kind of the light bulb moment where I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But I also know that I have to just do it, right? I just have to get out there and put it out there. The same was true with the podcast. The same was true with the magazine. I wanted it to be perfect, right? And it's not going to get perfect from the get-go.
It will never be perfect.
Correct.
But you can there's a Kobe quote out there about perfection, is he was always trying to achieve it, but he understood that if he could just get, cut it in half and always pursue it, that he was going to be the winner in the end.
Right.
His pursuit of it was the goal, is to keep pursuing it, knowing that the bar is always going to be out of reach.
Right.
So I definitely encourage you to keep striving for that, keep that mindset, and keep doing the basics, because if you're using Kobe as an example, he always loved the basics. He never forgot them. Right. And sometimes when we get to a level, we take for granted the basics of things.
Sure.
So I definitely don't forget that, and keep chasing the perfection.
Yeah.
Because this is an imperfect game we play.
It is,
and you'll never perfect it.
Right.
So let's just talk about do you have a bad beat story? You want to talk about a bad beat story?
So on the show, we charge $5 for everybody that tells a bad beat story.
Get out the jar.
That's a hefty jar, I'm sure. Everybody loves their bad beat story.
To be honest, though, I have them and I think about them every now and then, but I try to put those out of my mind. I try to focus on the good ones, right? The ones where, I played this hand the best that I could play it.
Yeah.
Did it work out? Doesn't really matter, because I played it correctly.
Yeah.
And that's more what I strive for with my poker game. I strive for me making the correct decisions.
Yeah.
So I got it in good. They hit their one outer on the river. Nice. C'est la vie. Yeah. I played that correctly.
Sure.
Right. So
yeah.
I got them to put their money in bad.
Right. Yeah. Well, I've my poker journey, I'll just tell you about my poker journey, is that I discovered poker in about 2001, 2002.
Okay. So pre-poker boom.
Pre-moneymaker.
Yeah.
Pre-moneymaker. So I was in there for the whole experience. Started with the country club network. I started seeing games pop up. I recall being in some sort of outing and us setting up a table on hole number 2 of Blacksburg Country Club, and 5 of us just started playing. And I was the worst player there by far. And then I got hooked. I got obsessed with it, and it just seemed.
What about it hooked you? What was it that made you go, this is I want to do more of this?
Just the thrill. The adrenaline of it, and the money aspect of it, pretty much. It just seemed like people, if I was looking at my hourly rate, $7.50 an hour, and I seen the money that was coming in on the table at a different rate than they're betting my hourly rate in one hand.
Right.
So it just, and then I'd always been a card player in my family. We'd play rummy and rook and all these games and around the family table,
Sure.
that type thing. And so I just had kind of card playing in my DNA. So when I started seeing that, I gravitated toward it, and really got obsessed with it and started my own home game. And I don't know if I'll ever get credit for it, but I'll just tell people what I am, and as far as running games goes and having a home game that I ran for 5 years every night of the week. Like we
That's
might have had a couple
lot of
nights
games,
off.
yeah.
We might have had a couple nights off in 5 years. I went on a cross country tour and my game still ran. I was gone for 10 days, and out of 10 days, we had 8 games. So my game ran even without me.
Right.
So I'm a local poker legend in my mind because that's unheard of. That's impossible to do, they say, right?
Right.
So to have a player pool that I'm pulling from that has the money that can continuously show up, I've got to promote to 100 people a night to get 10. So, and I pulled that off for half a decade. And then, that kind of found some competition along the way. And I got into a spot where I was looking at the real estate landscape and I was looking at what I went through every night to run a game. And I was like, it's time for this to shut down and for me to get focused on real business and do some real things in my life. And I did that. And I built a real estate company. I just cooked away in my mom's basement. I moved in. I have all this property and I have all this real estate, and I decided the responsible thing for me to do at this point is lease it all out and get all the cash flow I can get to take up all the opportunities that I can get and sit down here and build a business and build me personally and craft a man that I think would be valuable to the community.
Sure.
So I gave it up. I gave poker up for like 10 years. And I knew eventually I'd always kind of come back.
Right.
But when the real estate stuff I started seeing the real estate stuff start to collapse, because of the economy and some personal things that have gone on in my life.
Sure.
And poker has saved me. I'm on a little downswing right now. Like I went from up 800 for the month to down 400. So like that's just the nature of the game here. Sure. And the swings of it all. But the relationships that I've now gotten back in touch with, real estate transactions going on within the poker community. My relationship with 3Bet in this community would have never had the opportunity to talk with him and reconnect with him. Like back when I was running the game, we connected and we had this, unspoken bond, brotherhood type thing. I was there, in support of him. If he needed some money, like he busted a buy-in, he needed some money.
Sure.
Boom, here, Hunter, I know you got it. Go win it back. That type thing. Or, talking about, hand spots and, just getting better at the game. Like we had that connection then. We had that connection. We just picked it right back up pretty much. But if it wasn't for me re-entering the poker community, I would be short those transactions and I would be short this connection here with him.
Right.
So.
That is one thing that I don't think a lot of people outside of poker realize, that one, poker is a very close-knit group. Like if somebody does something to screw another player, the poker community knows it.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be ousted in some way,
Yeah.
right? But also, poker community comes together to do good.
Yeah.
A lot of good.
Yeah.
And that is actually one of the, talking about our goals, that's actually one of the goals that I took over when I took over the business. My goal was to use poker for good, right? My slogan is bet on better. So we concentrate a lot on charity games. We go to Chicago for this charity game every year that helps send kids with cancer to camps. and they do it once a year. But last year we raised $150,000.
That's awesome.
And it's because the poker community will come together to support a charity or support. They have charity games all the time,
Yeah.
and the reason they do it is because poker players will support it.
Yeah.
And so, that's the poker community is a strong one, and they always will stick together. And like you said, if somebody busts out, they need a buy-in. It's not uncommon for somebody to be like, "Hey, can you just spot me? I'll get you back."
Yeah.
And if you are a stand-up guy, then they know that, right? Yeah, I can give this to them because they're going to pay me back.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I think for a long time, and to some degree, still there, but the poker community had such a bad rap. People still think of it as the Wild West, right?
Yeah.
Back when Doyle was running from game to game, and you had to carry the shotgun in the back to protect yourself. We're far past that now.
Yeah.
Are there some games that are probably like that? Yeah, of course. There probably are.
Yeah.
But you don't have to go to those games to play now. So we're so far beyond that. But I think in people's minds, when you say poker, that's immediately where they go.
If they've never played, if they are unfamiliar with it, if they just see it in the James Bonds and the Wild West movies, they think that it's the degenerates, the criminals, the the worst of us, the thieves, the ones that are out there doing the worst. But really it's a king's game.
100%.
It's
yeah.
and it's one of those things where you will get to know a person. Like poker is really kind of true to life too. Like the way that you are at the poker table is the way you are in life in a lot of spots
to a degree,
because it's going to show how gracious you are. It's going to show you how you react under pressure. It's going to show you what you're capable of, and in any regards to take advantage of situations. So if I'm evaluating you as a business partner, I'm going to want to know how you act like that. And that's a perfect test to sit you down and say, let's play,
Right.
and let's see what risk you're willing to take, how logical you are, how gracious you are in defeat, and how you strategize around the game, because that's going to tell me how you're going to act when it comes to making big decisions in our business. Right. That's going to tell me if something doesn't work out. Are you going to whine and moan the whole time? You're going to go in bed and curl up and want to die about it, or are you going to fight? Are you going to fight with me to stay in the fire until we extinguish it? Like, are you going to be there with me when the times are the roughest?
Right.
So that's going to tell me about who you are in a lot of ways. If I can sit you down and you can grasp this strategy and you understand what we're doing here, and you can execute in a logical way and sometimes make plays that are risky but win,
Right. But also from the other side of that, are you the type of person that's going to try to shoot an angle and do it? Maybe you win, but did you do it the right way, or were you kind of shady?
It shows all your it shows all your ethics. It shows all your graciousness. It shows your humility, because you're going to get beat sometimes, and if you're scoffing at everybody that beat you and huffing and puffing when you're throwing your cards in and losing pots, do I really want to handle you as a partner,
Right.
in that spot? Probably not.
Right. Right. And it's always funny to me how, it's always somebody else's fault when they lose, right? If you're playing online, it's because the software's garbage. If you're playing live,
it's all rigged.
Yeah.
It's all rigged.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're playing with somebody, then the dealer didn't give you the right card, or this person made a stupid play, or whatever.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to say, well, what did I do wrong? How did you have to reflect on your own
Bro,
play.
this downturn I'm on is tons of self-inflicted wounds. You know, just stacking off when I didn't need to stack off.
Right.
You know, and you know, just learning from that. You know, prior to you getting here, me and Hunter were talking about those spots. Sorry, man. Yeah, we're just like we're sitting here and we're trying to learn and grow, and you know, that's I know that I get in these spots that sometimes they're unavoidable, but sometimes I need to recognize, you know, that I can fold, you know, and I don't have to, you know, as I'm trying to see this situation I'm in and exploit it, it still might not be the best thing to do with what I'm holding at the time versus what's happening around me.
Right.
So just being aware, looking at the numbers after the fact, and like trying to devise a plan to stop doing that, to avoid those spots. That's like life. That's still like life.
Exactly.
I've gotten into relationships with women. They didn't work. I don't want to get in those spots again. I've learned from those, and I'm gonna adjust my play in the next round.
Right. Right.
You know?
But to that degree, also sometimes, and we talk a lot about this on the podcast. Actually, is sometimes it's not about that hand. It's what did you do 4 hands ago or 12 hands ago or whatever to put you in a situation where you had to go all in on that hand, or you know that you had less chips to be able to manipulate that pot.
Yeah.
So it's so much bigger than, and the reason that I love this game so much is it's so much bigger than this one hand or this one game. Even it's a culmination of all of the games
Yeah.
together. Like, did I play differently because my bankroll wasn't as good because, you know, I made mistakes in the previous 3 games that I played? So
Yeah.
I that's why this game is so incredible.
And that could be somewhat of where I am too. You know, at this point, I'm bringing one bullet into the situation. I'm seeing downturns, and I'm seeing, you know, stacking off with ace king multiple times, you know, and then taking a shot and running into aces a couple of
Right.
times, and I have no backup, you
Yeah.
know, and that's a definite problem in no limit, especially.
Yeah.
So
You can get gun shy for sure.
yeah.
Speaking of that though, what do you think about rebuy tournaments?
I don't like rebuys I don't like rebuy tournaments that you can rebuy like on, you know, up to day 2. You know, like when you know, there should be some level to the strategy that cuts off a little sooner. I think a rebuy strategy is fine, but I think in the current live tournament structure, I think a lot of pros are having a lot of issues with it. So I think something needs to evolve in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. So I've talked with Elliot, our poker room manager in Schenectady, and we've come up with a tournament structure that I think everybody should adapt, which is, so if everybody gets basically, you buy in and you're getting 2 bullets, right? And you don't get to rebuy, but you get 2 bullets. So you bust out, you start with 20 big blinds from wherever you are, and you can do it one time. So rebuys are not an option, but a restart kind of thing.
What happens if you don't use it? Is there an advantage to not using your rebuy?
That's a good question.
There should be.
Maybe, you know, if you end up getting to the final table,
Yeah.
you can get, I don't want to say you would get 20 big blinds more, but maybe you get 10, or maybe, you know, something to that effect.
So the buy-in includes the restart if you have to restart. But I think if that's the case, if the registration closes and you didn't use it, there should be a bonus to the stack of some kind.
So this goes the entire tournament. So if I'm heads up with you and I bust, I get 20 big blinds back.
I don't like that at all. I don't like that. I don't like that.
But more than likely, in a tournament setting, you're going to have used it before you get heads up.
Yeah, maybe.
The likelihood of
it depends on the
not-
field size. It depends on the field size. If
Sure,
it's 200,
sure.
if it's 200 or less, you may not.
I don't think that's definitely not something that's designed for a $200 to $500 people.
Yeah.
It's more for like 500 plus people.
I'll tell you something that you got to be really careful when you introduce rules like that is it's very easily gamed. If you can figure out some way to mathematically take advantage of it,
Sure.
People are going to do that.
Yeah, and then
Sure.
and then busting heads up and not using it, and then getting an opportunity to get back in the game. I don't know, man. Like you just, I think it's worth a test run.
Yeah.
I think it's worth a test run or two.
Yeah.
But it's definitely different. It's definitely something that's never in my experience has never been done, and I avoid those type of tournaments if I hear about them locally. I avoid that. I avoid any time that if you didn't use your rebuy and it's heads up, or like even like the final three. If I'm in a 2-table sit and go, and you can rebuy when it's 3-handed, I don't fuck around with that.
Right.
Like I don't do that.
So maybe it could be a situation where you get to final table. If you haven't used it by the final table, you get.
I think there's a
certain number
performance
of chips.
bonus. I think there's a performance bonus that you would like if there's just one buy-in and there's no other buy-in, and you don't use the 20 you don't bust, you should get a bonus. You should get a bonus. It should be more than what you get if you do bust. So
Sure.
I think you give them an incentive to not bust, even though so what that's going to do is create a tighter game.
Right.
It's going to create a tighter
Which is
game.
what tournament poker
We want.
used to be.
Yeah, we want that.
Yeah.
We don't want 100 big blinds in pre-flop.
Right.
We don't want that. We want to play the game.
I want the tournament to be the game where I don't care how much money you have or how much money I have. We bought in the same amount of money.
You're not out
You've
bankrolling
got-
them. You're not
Yeah,
out bankrolling them.
you've got 9 bullets that you can fire, and I've only got 1.
Yeah.
So now you have the advantage.
Sure.
And I want to see that gone.
I think that's a wise thing. I think that's an interesting freeze out tournament is the purest.
Absolutely.
Like but it's the least profitable. That's why they're
It's
doing
the least
rebuys.
profitable for the player and the casino. So if you're playing, if the casino is going to put it on, why would they? Would they do it? Shoot themselves in the foot?
Do they not rake the second buy-ins? Do they not rake the? Do they not cut the rebuys?
Oh, they do. That's
Yeah.
why I'm saying a freeze out is less profitable.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
So-
the rebuy tournaments is where the profit lies.
Right.
They got to have that to make the rake, to get the guarantees, and because most live tournament at casinos have an what is it? An overlay? Is that what they call it? An overlay. Most of them don't make that, but they got to use some of the cut to get to the guarantee type thing.
Right. I was just out in December. I was out in Vegas at the WPT, and their main event was a $40 million guarantee.
Yeah, they had a $6 million overlay or something like that.
It was
right?
three.
$3
Yeah,
million,
$3
okay,
million
yeah.
overlay. Yeah, and the WPT covered that
Yeah.
out of their pocket. They
Sure.
didn't take anything out of the prize pool.
Yeah.
I'll give my little shout out to the WPT because they are, in my opinion, they are the best run or tournaments in the country.
Yeah, of course.
The WSOP is huge.
It's
right?
the most prestigious.
Yeah.
But the WPT is the most professional, I would say.
Yeah, I love their tournament structures. I love their games, the staff, everybody there.
They allow it to be a poker game and not a gamble fest, pretty much.
Yeah.
90-minute levels in that game, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't see 90-minute levels. I mean, does the World Series main event have 90-minute levels?
I want to say they have. I want to say they do.
Okay.
I want to say
Hour and a
they do,
half
but
levels?
Hour and a half. They may even be 2 hours.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
I'm hoping 3Bet's looking it up.
But anyway, I mean, I do agree with that, and they do go to some interesting places. It's not just centered around Las Vegas. They they tour the world.
Right.
You know, that's pretty cool. You know, so like that's something that you know, when you're considering vacation, when you're considering, you know, where you're wanting to travel and do things,
Right.
this is the only avenue of returning from your trip with money. Like these are the only types of things in our world that you go and you invest your time in and you have an experience and you enjoy this situation that you can bring money home.
Right.
Everything else you're consuming and you've that experience has cost you your revenue. You can actually be bringing some money home with these types of trips, which is cool.
And you still get the experience.
Exactly. It's even a better experience if you're making money. If you're bringing money home, hey, I went on this amazing experience and I brought money home. Ha.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for the moments that you can make with family on a family vacation and whatnot. But you get an experience playing poker and you get to bring some money home. That's a huge experience as well.
Yeah.
For sure.
2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours. It's 2 hour
Yeah.
levels.
Okay.
But then again, it's a 7-day tournament. Like,
Right.
That's a little bit different than
Exactly.
your little 2-day or daily. It's
Well, the main event for WPT was what, a 3 or 4 day event?
It was
right?
4 days, I think. Yeah. And the WPT Prime was an $1,100 buy-in, but Calvin Anderson, he made $1.4 million off of an $1,100 buy-in.
Yeah.
So that field shattered records. They didn't anticipate that one being as big, and the WPT ended up being smaller than what they needed it to be.
Yeah.
But
But
there were some factors there.
Well,
too.
they increased the guarantee by $10 million. So I mean, I think they want that to be the flagship of the end of year. Like they want really a lot of notoriety around that, and they were willing to take. I mean, they didn't lose no money. They might have had an
100%.
overlay, but they didn't lose no money.
The other tournaments that they had made the money for them to be able to pay that.
Exactly.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But also, they would have made that, in my opinion. But they got kind of screwed.
I mean, you know, the Bahamas thing with the
Yeah.
WSOP really kind of divided the player pool. That takes me back to my experience. You know, when I started seeing competition roll through that was dividing my player pool, that's when I was just like, it's not even worth trying to compete over anymore.
Right.
So, you know, I didn't really want to evolve with the times because I had a game that was sustainable. Nobody was getting too crushed
Right.
in the game, and then a little bit higher stakes game came along, and it got some attention, and it started. You know, people started picking sides, and just it was just a game that was like a couple miles away as well. So that kind of took away from the situation as well.
Yeah.
So that really does hurt. That hurts everybody if you're not working together in some capacity. Even if you are competing,
Right.
it really does hurt the whole experience for the player and the profitability for the companies if they're going to try to battle head to head. If they're not some sort of symbiotic understanding and respect there, it's going to really hurt.
And I think that for years there has been that. I don't know what the reason was for them to take that WSOP Bahamas
up against
them like that, because it was not necessary.
Yeah.
And it was, in my opinion, that was just disrespectful.
No doubt about it. With the allure of a bracelet, like, which is nonsense, because then bracelets should only be awarded at the main event, like the main series.
The main series, yeah.
Yeah. So I think they diminished the brand a little try to do that.
I think so too. I think that there have been quite a few decisions that the WSOP has made in the past, say, 5 years that have diminished bracelets to some degree, just adding so many of them. And, Phil Hellmuth has 17 now.
17?
I'm pretty sure it's 17.
Look that up.
And
17. Yeah, I think he won the last one in an Omaha game. I think maybe
his last one was just last year, right?
Yeah.
But he has 17, but these guys that played years and years ago, I mean, Doyle had 10, and he played in a time when you could only win, I don't know how many
Right.
events they had then, but it wasn't
It
but a
wasn't 40. It
handful.
wasn't 40 events.
Right.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. So
Yeah, all of a sudden it is 17 bracelets, but all of a sudden the record holder moving forward kind of has an asterisk because there's more opportunity to win them. It's kind of the same thing that happened in the UFC and boxing. Boxing had so many weight classes that it diminished the value of a single or being a multi-weight champion.
right.
Junior welterweight, super welterweight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know Helmut Skull is 24, but there was no opportunity for somebody to have gotten 24. Phil Ivey plays probably the least amount of tournaments, and I think he has 10.
Yeah.
So, when you see guys with 10 that play that few, then there's actually a funny clip with Phil Hellmuth and Michael Phelps, where he was giving Michael Phelps a hard time
For only having the amount of gold medals
Yeah.
versus the gold bracelets he's got.
and Michael
Yeah.
Phelps is like, "You play 30 events a year."
Yeah.
I played 30 events total.
Yeah, there's probably some sort of way to do like bracelets versus events played to kind of change the metric in some sense, which would be interesting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if you're really determining who is the greatest. Now, if you're just looking for bracelet totals, fine, whatever. But if you're really trying to funnel it down to who is the best, then I think you have to do something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But so you ran a game, and I'm assuming you played in the same game.
Well, I would try to get. I wanted to be just on the house side of it, and I was bringing people in. If there was an empty seat, I'd get in. I'd bust them up and give them their money back. Pretty much, like I didn't want to. I was looking for a customer service experience. Pretty much,
Right.
I was bringing in. I was hosting. I was a good player, and I felt like I had an edge in the game. But anytime I had to get into a pot with somebody and I beat them, I'd always give them their river bet back, or I would, I'd always run it twice with them. I was always just treating them as good as I possibly can. So it was a break even. Like I always just wanted to break even in the play.
Yeah.
And then earn what I earned,
That's always the problem that I would have had if I were to run a game is if I'm running it, I'm just running it. I don't want to play in it because one, I don't want to take the people that are coming to my games money every time.
Yeah.
Not that I would.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm the greatest, but I would feel bad about that. And I actually just was thinking about this. Wait, I had Trooper. I had an interview with the Trooper a couple of weeks ago. He's going to be our February issue. He's going to be the feature in our February issue. But he was talking about he has Trooper Thursday, right? He has the game that he plays every Thursday at the Westgate. And he said, it's hard. Those guys that are there every week that are like the regulars, I don't have a problem playing against them as much. But if it's somebody that traveled in because they just want the experience of playing in my game, I don't want to take their money. Like, I don't want to, bring somebody into the game and they go home broke. Like, that's not what I'm there for. But I think it's interesting. It's an interesting mix, right? The same is true from a player standpoint. If you're invited to a home game, it's like you don't want to come in and just wipe out everybody. You want to make sure that you
not
give
on the
some
first
action.
game anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you're giving some action there as well to balance that a little bit, and so that you're asked back.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a tough game, that's a different story, But if it's a weak game, then if it's a soft game, you definitely want to make sure that you're coming back.
Yeah. I mean, between our locations, there's probably a game every night, but Sunday. And
But Saturday.
I think there's a game
Is
somewhere. Yeah. Especially like a little pop-up tournament here or there.
Because I know a game on Sunday. So pretty much every day then.
Okay, then every day.
There you go.
So we have an opportunity for people to get in the mix every day of the week in our locations. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
And just the circle I run in, and there's some games I've not been invited to yet. I've been trying to get into that I know about, or games in Roanoke that I've never been to, but I know that run. Just in the circle I'm in, there's 100 players. Just the circle of the games I play, and I'm playing probably 25 hours a week at this point. I'm playing from 10:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday. I run to a tournament after that from 6:30 till midnight. If I bust out of there, there's a cash game I can get into. So there's 3 games I play in on Tuesday,
Right.
that equal at least 10 hours if things go well. And then I'm running Thursday from 5 p.m. until probably 10 p.m. if things go well. And then Friday from 6 until midnight if things run well. So there's a lot of hours going into the opportunity to so for the last couple of years, I've been trying to find social outlets, and I've been finding the wrong social outlets, like the bars and the expense coming with trying to be involved with local music and just finding entertainment in this area. And I can't even, I'm embarrassed to look at the money that went to that could have been over here in these relationships a little bit sooner, doing the things I'm trying to do with the relationships that I've reconnected with now. Just imagine reconnecting a year ago, I don't beat myself up too much, but I do put in perspective of, man, I should have been back over here a little bit ago.
Right.
And, so that's what poker's brought to my life. That's seeing all that.
How do you balance that though? Like I told you when we started, I've played less poker because I don't have the time. So
Yeah.
how do you balance your work and poker? Because I know in my case, I'm going until I drop.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, okay, start the next day.
So here's how I do it, is because the balance of my work includes the networking in the game. Like I see the game as work. So my work doesn't ever stop when I'm coming from my office focused on real estate. I'm getting into real estate conversations and promotion opportunities and developing relationships with all the people in the game that I'm going to. So I write that off in my mind as I'm still on the clock. Like I'm still in a situation where there's money in the pot that I'm earning or hoping to earn, and there's relationships. I'm showing these people who I am. I'm exposing myself to conversations with people and deepening my relationships, even in the moments where they're pissed off at me for dragging a pot from them.
Right.
They understand. I'm trying to find respect. There's respect coming from the way that I play. I hope they see me as a person in the play and I find respect in these men that will then lead to other opportunities. So I see it in a whole
women.
360 view. I see it in a whole 360 view of, you're going to get to know me. You're going to get in spots with me, and I'm going to reveal to you who I am. You're going to respect me. And then it's going to lead to these situations.
Sure.
Or we're going to line up to know that we don't like each other. and that's fine too, So, but I'm going to get certain amount of opportunities in everywhere I go. So my clock, even when we hung out, we had Adam. That was we were drinking, we were having a good time, but like when I say if I'm awake, I'm working, that's exactly, no matter where I am and what I'm doing, where's my next opportunity? Where's my next business partner? I'm looking for a wife who's going to be, I'm looking for these things.
Right.
So I'm always working on those tasks pretty much. So that's how I balance it, is there's no balance, is I'm always thinking that way.
I mean, that makes sense. It's just like a change in perspective.
Sure.
Right. So,
And I want to do all
there's
this. I want to do all this on the front end. So when I do have obligations of my time and other endeavors, that I've done all the hard work here. So when it flips over and I do have to, I've got this thing built up over here and it can run, I can go over here and handle my kids and handle my wife and like whatever I've got to do in this realm. I've already done all the hard work over here.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when you are in the office, the work just looks different than when you're out of the office.
There's in the field and there's in the office.
Sure.
That's it.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that's one of my biggest struggles is trying to find a way because all of my time is pretty much in the office. Like I'm either on the phone recording or editing or emailing or whatever, and it's just constant until I'm like I
can't do it.
I have to walk away now.
Yeah,
you gotta find you some good partners.
That's what I'm saying. Hey, I mean, that's going to be your next endeavor is to find a group that can help leverage you, and you transfer maybe 80% of your skill to them, and that it's going to be delivered consistently, and that you can kind of keep pushing them forward. So it sounds like you're about to that spot. Like you're maxing out.
Yeah.
And like
for sure.
The burnout in life is real. And the only way to solve that is to have other people, in my opinion.
No, I think that makes sense. That makes sense. And it's hard though, because I'm also kind of a perfectionist in that I know how I want it to be done.
Yeah.
And
we're all control freaks in the beginning. As we ascend, we like to have our attention on every little thing. But I do know, and I was the biggest control freak from the moment the lead come in, from the moment that I go to the appointments, how I want everything structured, from the time it goes under contract. I have everything laid out. And the only way that I could go from 40 deals a year to 80 deals a year was to interject just some average, no offense to anybody that's ever, and maybe I'm not talking about you, but just injecting average talent, not just like a heartbeat. Like I injected a heartbeat and took my business from X to Y. I then interjected mediocre talent, and it went from Y to Z. I got some real talent, and we're off the alphabet chart. Right. We were just off it. So that's how you can progress there, to find just somebody that can support whatever your idea is, and they will be the manufacturer, the worker bee to figure that out, to do that.
I think we may be of value to you in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I do too.
And
we've been talking about that whole scenario.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would love to be a partner with Ante Up. I think 3Bet and I will be able to do some of the things that, we're focused on and that you don't even have interest in. Like we're immersed in that, and we're obsessed with the social media thing, and trying to become somebody on the internet is, the path that I'm on right now. So doing that and then replicating that for my partners, I think that's going to be like when I do have that success and we've figured out the formula to come to you with that and help you do the same thing, dude. I think that's in our future, hopefully, if you're with it.
Yeah. I think the biggest obstacles are just trying to, like I said, get it out there, right? I'm such a perfectionist that I want it to be the best quality that I can put out there. And what I've learned from the podcast is that putting it out there is how I get better, right? On purpose.
Quantity sure does drive quality a lot of times.
Sure. And I've made it a point not to go back and listen to my first couple of episodes yet. I'm going to do it at some point, but I am positive that they are just trash.
They definitely are. And if like my experience, if you go look at episode 1 of Putting You in Your Place, the lighting's terrible, the camera isn't in the right ISO, the audio is probably not perfect, and we're bumbling idiots for the most part. Still might be a little bit of that every now and then, but I'm way better than I was at the start. So,
Right.
But you got to start. You got to do that, and like I said before, the courage it took just to take action. You've beaten like 95% of everybody else by just taking that action. So,
Right.
yeah.
It's funny because I think people that are what you would consider entrepreneurs, right? I think that it's a different mindset than a lot of people, and I've always had that kind of mentality, but never able to take the action. I graduated high school. The next year I got married. The next year I had a child. 2 years later I had 2 children, and so you have to balance, taking care of family obligations. You can't just be like, well, let's just throw some money over here and see if it works.
Yeah.
And so I would never change that, but that what I've said about where I'm at now. When the day that I bought Ante Up, I said, this is the moment that I've been training for my whole life. Every marketing job I've ever had, every decision that I've made in life has led me to where I am right now.
Wow.
And so this is the culmination of all of the work that I've put in my whole life. And so
that's cool to recognize that moment. That's cool to like, oh, that's what that was for, and that's why I made those decisions. I didn't even know this opportunity was going to be here, but man, I'm sure glad I did that.
Yeah.
And that's going to help benefit this venture. And you being able to just even recognize that. A lot of people will miss that.
Yeah, probably. But you also, one of my biggest things is putting people around you that help you stay in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
And so I do have a great support group, starting with my wife and my kids. And so having that support group helps you kind of go, oh, that's a different perspective.
Right.
So that that's important, I would say. I know you're talking about, trying to put things in place now for later, and that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
Even though it looked different, I was putting things in place without knowing what the end goal was.
Sure.
But then when I hit it, I'm like, that was it.
Yeah.
That's Eureka. So yeah, that's it. It's a cool moment when you hit that, and it's not easy, right?
Sure.
It's still hard. Everything we do is still hard work, but the number of people that told me, don't make your passion your job, were wrong.
Yeah.
They were all wrong, because I have loved every minute of it. And in fact, when I have other stresses in life, right? Like my job is I get to go and interview really cool people, and
You've actually turned an escapism into your primary thing.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Exactly.
Like where I had a passion and wanted to be valuable to people. This is the right spot for me to do the most with that, So my escapism is wanting to be connected with people, and in large groups of people. Like I don't mind large groups of people. I don't mind individual thing, the individual relationship. The one-on-one stuff is great. Just connecting with other people is my thing. So you being able to do that and find that in poker, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's more than I ever could have imagined.
Yeah.
So
Well, then you live in the best life. You
Yeah,
live in the best life.
100%,
You
yeah.
got a great wife and kids, and you get to go and do this thing every day that you love. Man, what an amazing
yeah,
thing.
the number of people that strive for what I have is, it's incredible. Um, and like I said, you have to put in work to get there, and you also have to put in work to keep it there, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Um,
Keeping it is the thing, because it can go away if you take focus off of it. I'll attest to that. If you think things won't run without, I mean, there are companies out there that can the owner can step away and it can function and it can grow and it can do those things, but a lot of times that's not the case.
Right.
And these are type of companies that if the proprietor, the business owner takes their eyes off the crank, then it might not get cranked anymore.
right,
That type thing. So
Yeah, I think that when you put your name on it, right, then it's yours. You have to be the one, as you said, turning the crank.
yeah.
And
Or at least have your eye on the people that are supposed to turn the crank for you.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I think that it's good to keep a perspective, but it's also, um, you know, at some point you have to realize that this is a product of my work,
Yeah.
right? And I think that there's not enough people that are willing to also look at the fact that, I don't want to say pat yourself on the back really, but also realize that you are where you are because you put in the work, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to have that mindset and still continue to work.
Correct.
but if you can do it, then you're ahead of most.
Right. So, just a interesting question that popped in my mind. What do we hate about poker? What do we not enjoy about, like, even your business? Like, is there something there that you're just like, man, I can't stand doing that. I don't want to do that. Like, or there's a scenario that came on, just a story that you have about something that just like you want to avoid about a certain situation in the game.
So I kind of had a tangent this week, actually. One of my pet peeves in poker is people that slow the game down. I hate it. It drives me crazy. And I end the show every week with what I call Joe's one outer. So it's just whatever I want to talk about. It's how I send the show out, right?
Nice.
And
I like that
Love the
name.
name. Yeah.
so this week it was all about people that are slowing the game down. Like, stop being an ass. Like, and I came up with names for them all, but it's the guy that is so obsessed with the bets that he put on his teams, his 4-game parlay, that's more interested in those TVs than what's going on. It's the person on their phone that's of all things playing another game on their phone rather than paying attention to the one in front of them. And the people that want to constantly bombard you with their own stories of, oh, I keep getting good cards, but I can't hit the board. And it always leads to that one time that they got the bad beat jackpot. Every time they will talk, if they start out with, man, I'm getting good cards, but I just can't connect with that board. You're going to hear how they won a bad beat jackpot by the end of the night. So those are the things that drive me crazy. Those are my biggest pet peeves, so to speak. But poker is a social game, and I love the social aspect of it. And those are things that you have to put up with in that. So our biggest sponsor actually for the show is Jackpot Digital. They have these electronic poker tables. So they don't have a dealer. it's mistake free, but you're still sitting around the table, right? And I was able to play on one of those, and the number of hands that we got through was incredible.
Wow.
But you're still playing in the live environment. You're still looking at the person across the table from you and whatever. So it's the greatest mix as far as I'm concerned. But I was like, we still have this guy telling me bad beat stories. What is going on? but like I said, I mean, it is a social game. It is still part of the process. But and I love having conversations. You know, everything we do on the show is part of what you do around the table. So we have our first segment is always table talk, which is just talking around the table, right? It's just subjects that are in the news that you're going to talk about when you go to the poker table.
Again, great name. For anybody out there, all these names are puns off of poker lingo, if you're not familiar with poker.
Yeah.
It's great. It's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so if you are going to play poker and you're in a place that doesn't allow you to play online poker as much, then you're going to have to interact with people. I mean, I guess you can put. That's another thing. That's another thing that drives me crazy, though.
Putting the big headphones on.
Here, the headphones, the sunglasses, the hoodie. Stop. Just, I saw a picture the other day. I don't even remember who it was that posted it, but the guy was wearing a mask, had the sunglasses on, had the hoodie up. You could not see an inch of him. And it's like, how is that even fair? Like, that's not part of the game.
Yeah, but he's using COVID as an excuse to cover up all his physical tells.
Right.
You know,
yeah, he is. But I don't even know that at that point he was using as an excuse. Like, it was just what it was.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, this gave me an idea, maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's like, I'm scared of COVID. I think it was just
right. But he can always run
blatant.
that excuse. He can always
Sure.
run that excuse. I think for me, my biggest pet peeves that I've gotten to, now that I'm kind of back in the circuit is a couple games, very splashy. And I feel like I'm an etiquette guy. Like, I want proper etiquette. I want it to be speedy. I want the game to be speedy. I want there to be a lot of hands per hour. I want there to be structure and reasonable rules and players that understand that, and then, in the games I play, everybody has played a long time. And I certainly hate the games where the dealer is also the player. And I don't think that any consistent game should be deal your own. So there needs to be some thought put behind who they want to come in and deal the game. We compensate that dealer with tips after a winning hand, and that the house guy is always ready to pop up and get out of the game when there's one waiting. I hate the house guy in the game when he's also the dealer. I don't want the house guy to be the dealer. Right. I'm not going to ever tip the house guy. I did last night, but I don't like tipping the house guy if he's the dealer. I don't. And I definitely don't want my house guy also playing. Like, I don't want him dealing, cutting, and playing. Like, I don't like that. So I do have to put up with that one day a week. And I hate the way he deals. He does this old school where, like, he covers up half the card. So, like, we're around this big ass table, and he's not consistent with his flop, turn, and rivers. He's always putting them out in different ways and different spots. And, there's old people at the table, and I don't have 20/20 vision.
Right.
So, like, he's manipulating that to, like, if I'm looking harder, that's a tell on, like, what I could possibly be holding. Right. So he's manipulating the game while he's dealing and while he's playing. So it's a really, suspect thing for me, especially when he's got a guy that we all want in the game and we don't want him in the game, dealing the game, cutting the game, and we got this guy over here we all want in the game, and he's not making room for him.
Right.
So I hate that. And just, the environments, can change in a whim in these home games. A couple of guys running a game, I have a disagreement, and now we're over here playing in this other thing. So not having a safe, consistent environment with the right rules,
Right.
So we have to deal with that around here if we want to play. So, but those are the things I want: etiquette, I want structure, I want order. I want order. And I hate when it's not that way.
Right.
So
yeah, I think that's the goal. That's the reason that poker in a casino exists.
Yeah.
Right. Because it brings that consistency and order.
Yeah.
That if somebody has to call the floor over there, if you have a handle on the rules, you know pretty much how that's going to go. Right. Obviously, there are some situations that don't go as expected, but when you were talking about that, though, it reminded me, and it made me think maybe I'm more of a poker snob than I realized. But also, I hate it when you were talking about how he messes up the order. It drives me crazy if you put the flop out and then you put the turn out, and then for some reason you decide the river should go on this side.
Right.
Why did you? What?
Yeah, exactly. And if these are the cards, right? Like I got a card right here, and he's putting his flop out. I get to see like a third of this card. So he's putting the cards on top of each other where we can only see this spot because he's an idiot. He's an old guy. He doesn't think it matters. They've been playing for decades, and he's just he's like the worst player in the game, really. But it's just like a conflict of interest to me to be the house guy, the dealer, and you're also playing. Come on, bro. That's like the shadiest in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a problem with a player that plays in the game as long as they're not the one making the majority of the decisions. Like the person running the game.
Right.
As long as they're not making the majority of the decisions. Like we've played in a game where
if he's the floor, if he's the dealer, if he's the house, and he's a player, there's so many conflicts of interest there.
Right.
That if he's the dealer in a pot and he fucks up the deck, like, dude, I am super pissed at that point. So like,
especially if he was in the hand when that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get.
And now we have to split the pot. Yeah. Like I'm like always looking for like them trying to angle me in some way in that particular game. But it's just such a juicy game, and I do know a couple of the guys that had gotten me involved. So I kind of and that's the only real game I'm crushing right now. So even though I have dumped a little bit of money back in that game, like that's my most profitable spot. So I can't really, and that's the thing is you can't really like question them,
right?
Because you don't want to be barred from the game, So you got to tread lightly, in these spots. So. Because it would be devastating to lose access to that game, especially when I'm out here trying to make it. I'm getting in the game for opportunity to earn the money that could come from it. So like I feel like I'm losing a 5-hour spot where it's like $100 an hour opportunity. That's pretty crushing as far as like I got to have another game to replace it if I lose that.
Right.
So
sure. Yeah. I think that. There are a lot of things that you have to put up with in a home game that you're not going to have to and will not be tolerated in a casino setting. Yeah. But there's also some things in a casino setting that you have to put up with that you don't have to do in a home game.
Right.
For example, they're going to take a higher rake. It just is. The casino, and most of them have gone up on their rake as of January 1. I don't know about I don't know about the ones closest to us, but I get people sending me screenshots of or pictures of their casino announcing that they're raising their rake from all across the country. So
Wow.
as of January 1, I would say a majority of casinos have raised their rake again.
Well, I mean, I would say a 10% rake. That's typically what I'm seeing in the home games. Typically, in the history of my play, that's been home game rake. I was thinking that the casino was pretty much probably right in line with that whole scenario, minus
So-
any promotion rake, that they do.
and that's a big one. It is a big one. But some are going from 8 to 10, some are going from 10 to 12, and some are upping, because they go $10 max or whatever. Some are going all the way up to $20 max now.
Sheesh.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think, and this is, no one has said this to me or whatever, but I really think that they are trying to phase out 1, 2, 1, 3 in the casino. I think they are trying to bring most of those games to B2-5 as their lowest limit. So
Why?
because
1-2 is really not profitable.
yeah,
them.
if the casino itself is not making money off of 1, 2 at all. 1, 3, they're probably break even. So really, they're just running those games to feed the other games. And they're hoping that maybe you stop off at the blackjack table on your way out or something.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I think that 1, 2, 1, 3, and I don't know what the time frame is, but at some point, casinos are going to be like, I don't think we need to be running that, especially.
Hey, inflation, right?
Yeah.
Everything's going up.
Yeah, and you've
So-
got to pay that dealer a substantial amount of money to sit there and deal 1, 3, and they're going to get their tips too. So I don't know if you have to pay a minimum wage to a dealer. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But if you are, then they're making bank to sit there and deal 1, 3, and the casino's making nothing.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have anybody you want to shout out?
So I mentioned Jackpot Digital. They have their Jackpot Blitz tables. I'll shout them out. Definitely check them out. Our Magic Mind is another one of our advertisers. I'll shout them out. They have it's like natural ingredients that can give you some boost in energy, but also keep you focused and keep you calm. So
That's awesome.
it's great for a poker player.
Yeah.
So I'll shout them out and say that you can get 20% off of them their products if you go to their website magicmind.com and use Ante up 20.
Nice.
So and then I think that's
Well, I'm going to shout you out. Go check out anteuppoker.com. Find them on Twitter. Everywhere that you guys are, follow them, give them a shot. You got the Patreon thing. You got, a lot of activities to get started, to learn the game. I feel like I bring growth and positive energy to the places that I go and the things that I do.
AnteUpMagazine.com. Is
Yeah.
that you?
Yeah, that's me. And then, of course, anywhere that you can get to podcasts, you can go there. If you go up to magazine, then you can see the magazines there. And then, and Pokercast will get you to the podcast, but also it's everywhere. It's anywhere you can get podcasts. It's out there.
I think we rip off and duplicate some of the things he's done here, and trying to figure that same thing out for us to reach all these other places. And I think Twitter is a good spot for us as well. X, whatever we want to call it. So I just think there's a lot of things that we're doing. We have the same goals. We have
Sure.
the same energy behind poker. We have a business that we're trying to grow. We have a lot of different things that I think we can benefit from a relationship with each other.
100%.
So I appreciate you being on today, brother. And
I appreciate you inviting me.
yeah, to many years and a lot of success together as we figure out a way to navigate with each other.
100%.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Più forte fa.
For those who want glory, just know, no matter what you've been through, it's out there for grabs. Yeah. Take his home.
Ancor più forte